My name is Amber White. I've been at Church Project since January of 2010, and this is my story. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in a small town, small church, small school. I have a good family, great parents, still married after 32 years. And I was very involved, not only in church, because I came to know Christ at the age of 8. And so I was not only very involved in church, but school as well, sports, all kinds of sports, cheerleading. And my family was well known in the town. My dad was on the school board. And so I had these certain expectations that I felt like I had to live up to, which I don't do well with. And so I started to act out and started to kind of get into the drug scene, drinking, things like that around my sophomore year. And it was really hard in my home because my little brother was still there at the time. And so it just progressively got worse. And by my senior year, 2 weeks before graduation, my parents decided to kick me out. And still to this day, they say that that was one of the hardest things that they've ever had to do, but that was the best thing for me at the time. So after I graduated high school, I decided to move to Dallas, new city, new people, got a roommate, and since my parents were no longer supporting me financially because they didn't approve with my lifestyle, I had to make ends meet somehow, and didn't want to get a real job, so started selling drugs, everything from pot to cocaine, ecstasy, acid, whatever, you name it. And the entire time that all this was going on, unbeknownst to me, I had people praying for me. I had people on their knees praying for me, and my mom specifically. And she told me after this was all said and done that there were 3 things that she prayed for: that I wouldn't get pregnant, I would not go to jail, and that I wouldn't die. And during this time of rebellion, just about everything happened to me except for those 3 things. So there came a point where I knew that I needed to make some changes. And the only way of doing this for me was to move out by myself. I got an apartment on my own. I needed to get a real job, so I stopped selling and decided to start waiting tables. I went back to school, and I was trying to do the right things. The only problem was that at this point, the drug use was more than recreational for me. It was more than just doing it socially. It had become a habit for me. I was addicted. I was no longer just hurting myself. I was now bringing other people into this lifestyle and bringing them down with me. And after a couple years of doing this, one night, it's still very clear to me, the Lord revealed to me in such a way that only I would get, and that He knew would break me. And He said to me, Amber, He said, there's two paths that you can go down now. You can choose to go this way, which leads to destruction, or else you can choose my way. And I went to sleep that night, got up the next morning, and instead of doing drugs before I went into work like I always did, the desire was no longer there. And so after work, I decided to go and see my parents in Van, and my sister was there, and she had told my mom and me that she had had a dream the night before. And what she said that her dream was exactly where I was in my life at that point. I just felt like Satan was just hovering over me, just waiting to devour me and take me out at any moment. And so I just broke down, and I just got on my knees, and I prayed with my mom and my sister, and I just said, God, I'm so sorry. And I knew at that point that my life would never be the same. So after my experience in Van, I drove back to Dallas, and I knew that there would be no way that I could continue living in Dallas and have the same friends, be at the same job, without living the lifestyle and drugs that I was involved with. So I decided to pack up my things. I moved to Houston. And during this transitioning time for me, the Lord completely took away any desire that I had ever had for drugs. And I went from being addicted to not only not having that desire, but I got married and I started doing ministry. That was a crazy time. It was a hard time, a tough time. God was working some things out in me. He's still tuning me on a daily basis. But through this, He has shown me that He has given me this story to share with others. And that was hard for me to do for a while, because not only did I hurt myself and others, but I was ashamed of what I did to God. But He told me, He said, Amber, there are no bounds and there are no limits on my grace and my mercy and my love that I have for you. My favorite scripture is 1 Corinthians 15:10, and it says, by the grace of God, I am what I am. And that just speaks volumes to me, because it tells me that I can still be Amber Wyatt. I can still go to Church Project and be everything that He's created me to be. The only difference is that now, instead of living for myself and living in the world, I'm living for Him. I'm Amber Wyatt, and this is my story.